Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny, and I'm joined by my partner, Kenny. And this is Sports on the Positive Tip, where we have conversations at the intersection of sports and faith. Kenny, today, I think it's all about football, right? Championship Sunday. We got to talk about that.
Yeah, Super Bowl is 9 days away. It's getting here. It's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. It's going to be, I think, a great game. Tom Brady announces his retirement again. We got to give him some props on today's show, right?
Yeah, and it seems like this one's actually for good.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
we'll see.
Yeah, I think so. And are you scratching your head like I am about Tony Romo? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I don't get it. We could talk more about it. I
Yeah,
just don't get it though.
I don't either. And then we've got some inspiration that has to do with the Super Bowl, I think, right?
Yep,
All
here we
right.
go.
All right, ready to do this?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey there, everybody. This is Kenny and
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. And Kenny, it is freezing cold there in Cleveland, but some of that finally came to New York after a very mild January. So you guys staying warm there?
Yeah, wind chill today is -1.
Negative
So,
one. All right.
and we're also getting a little bit of snow, but it's like the snow that's just annoying. It's
Yeah.
not enough for a snow day. We've had snow like pretty much every day the last week.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
snow days. That's
Wow.
more annoying to me.
Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I tell you, we are going to talk mostly football today, but I wanted to start real quick. Knicks with a big win last night over the Miami Heat. They had the chance to win it to eat at the end, and I was afraid because Tyler Hero was hitting every shot from all over the place. Bam was terrific last night, but the Knicks without Jalen Brunson hung on. Was that a big win for the Knicks? I mean, they had to stop it here because they had lost that game to the Nets in the last minute or so, and then took the Lakers to overtime, and the Knicks had control of that. The Lakers just outplayed them in overtime. Was that a huge win for the Knicks last night, do you think?
Yeah, because also they haven't played well at home. Obviously, without Jalen Brunson, that's also a
Yeah,
big win.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, like I don't know, there's still something I feel like that's missing with this team.
yeah.
And I had seen a thing that they're willing to give up 3 draft picks for OG and Novi, and I'm like, no, don't do that at all. That's bad. Like, if you're not willing to give up 3 draft picks for Donovan Mitchell,
Yeah.
don't give up 3 draft picks for OG. Don't do
No,
it.
he's got a lot of potential, but I would give up 3 draft picks for Siakam if Toronto's going to give me him, although he probably plays the same position as Julius Randle, who is just playing at another level, by the way, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he's
All
just,
Star.
yeah, I'm glad he made the All-Star team. I would have loved to have seen Brunson in there as well, but it's hard to have two players on there. I know you sent me a message last night that James Harden got snubbed, and he wasn't happy about it at all. Why do you think James Harden didn't make it this year?
I think it's kind of more the narrative around him because like obviously he was excellent in Houston. There was the weird Rocky stuff in Brooklyn, but
Mm,
then when he goes from Brooklyn to Philly, he never really got fully healthy. And then I feel like because of that, people kind of just assume that he was washed up.
yeah,
So like here, I'll pull up his numbers, but I feel like a lot of it is more the narrative that he's kind of already past his prime. Because
yeah,
it
yeah,
like I don't know, at first it looked like he was, but I mean he still is averaging 21 points a game.
yeah.
He's shooting almost 40% from three, and he's still averaging 11 assists.
And so that's why I'm a little surprised he didn't make it because listen, when we first started the show, both of us, I think, used to be pretty hard on James Harden, and none of us like him forcing his way and really showing up out of shape in Houston, and then really forcing his way out of Brooklyn as well. I think part of that, in my opinion, was the Nets' fault too, that they didn't really, plan for the turmoil that was about to come. But
Yeah,
all that being said, I saw this. I thought his game starting to turn around a little bit when he was with the Nets, and him trying to be more of a passer. listen, the guy never was a good passer because he always would shoot first, ask questions later, man. I mean, he just, but here in Philly, he's trying to really get everybody else involved. He's trying to, I think he probably wants to get into a championship series and win the championship. And listen, Philly's got as good a chance, I think, as anyone. They're playing extremely well. And he's averaging 11 assists. No one thought that James Harden years ago would average 1 assist, because he just always shot. So I'm really surprised that since he's become a better all-around player, that he gets snubbed. And when he was just a scorer, he was making it every year. Is that a little odd to you?
Yeah, a little bit. I think that's part of like the a lot of people just love the scoring,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is ironic too, because LeBron James now is 63 points away from passing Kareem, and it seems like nobody cares. Like you remember all of like the tracking of Steph Curry
Yeah.
passing or setting the 3-point record,
Point
and
record.
like obviously it was a big deal for us because it was at Madison
Yeah.
Square Garden,
Yeah.
but like people were looking at it like weeks ahead of time. LeBron James could break this record in like feasibly 2 or 3 games, and
Yeah.
it seems like there's no coverage around it.
I find that odd. I don't know why that is either. And this is an amazing achievement. Kareem played a long time and was dominant for a long time, and he's had that record for a long time. So it's an amazing accomplishment for LeBron. And you're right. Is there a little bit of backlash on LeBron? And I say that because you probably saw what happened Saturday night in Boston when he definitely got fouled. But his reaction, I mean, I know, listen, he's a competitor in the way that Kobe and Michael Jordan were, and even Kareem, Larry Bird. He's got that old school I want to win at all costs. So I get it, but oh my gosh, on your national game showcase Saturday night, yeah, terrible missed call there. Jason Tatum definitely fouled him, and it definitely altered the shot. But oh my gosh, I mean, and so is this like a little anti-LeBron thing that we're seeing that maybe it's not a big deal?
Maybe, maybe not. Because also like the NBA referee Twitter page tweeted out an apology
Yeah,
saying, "Oh yeah, we definitely missed it."
yeah.
No, no, no. This past weekend, the refs had an awful weekend, not just in the NBA, but also we can talk about
Oh,
the NFL in a
yeah,
second.
second, yeah. Oh my,
But
yeah,
but yeah, I mean that might be part of it, but also people tend to side more with the players than the refs anyway. Um, Although LeBron is probably one of those guys that gets more calls than anybody else, so I feel like there's not a ton of sympathy for him. Because like when I think of like the whole flopping thing, LeBron was like the king of getting those type of calls. Like traveling kind of stopped existing when LeBron came into the league.
yeah,
So I don't know if it's necessarily like an anti-LeBron thing. Maybe it's also just like he gets covered with everything else. But like this is probably one of the greatest accomplishments of his career outside of like coming down 3-1 against the Warriors.
yeah,
Like you're talking about a guy like this is one of those records that people thought would not be broken. Like this is like one of the more sacred records I think in the NBA like overall.
yeah. I
And
agree.
and
Yeah,
he's just going about it like it's nothing.
I, I also think that there are most people outside of LA, although it was kind of odd at Madison Square Garden. This always happens. There seem to be a lot of Laker fans, but I think a lot of folks don't want to see the Lakers do well. And I don't know that that's totally LeBron. I think because the Lakers have been so dominant, the last couple of decades, going back actually to the '80s. With the Magic Johnson team and everything. The Magic Johnson team was so likable, though. It was hard to root against them. But then, the Kobe Shaq teams, I think, winning three in a row the way they did, I think there's just sort of like this backlash against the Cowboys, against the Yankees. I think there's
Yeah.
against the Lakers. And now that LeBron is part of the Lakers, it's like, okay, we're going to just kind of lump him in. And and kind of root against him. I don't know. You brought up a great point, and that I had realized a couple of weeks ago, because watching Kareem from the time he came into the end was when I first started liking basketball. In his, maybe second season was when I really started watching, with him and Oscar Robertson on the Bucks, and then winning a championship together. And I watched Kareem's whole career from now, a little bit young to remember his college career, but this is a big deal to me historically. I'm like, wow, somebody's breaking his record, man. Not even Michael Jordan. And I guess Jordan would have done it had he not sat out that, year and change that he sat out, almost 2 years. But this is just it's an amazing achievement. But you're right, it's not getting to play. You know, um,
Yeah, and like it's not like because a lot of these type of like big milestone records, they tend to get broken with guys that are like you're talking scoring like averaging 10 points a game, or like in baseball like Albert Pujols was chasing 700 and he was like barely hitting home runs. But
yeah.
like LeBron is still averaging what, 27 points a game?
Oh, 29,
Like
almost 30. He's 29.9 points a game. He's almost at 38 years old. He's almost, we'll jump to Tom Brady in a second, but at 38 years old, he's almost averaging 30 points a game.
yeah, and in his 20th season, like um
Amazing.
there's no one does that.
He's amazing. He's amazing. Well, we'll get to more basketball next week, but I wanted to start. Those were just a couple of. I'm so glad you brought that up because I have been thinking about that. Let's jump over to Tom Brady before we jump into Championship Sunday. We'll talk a little bit about announcing here, because I also want to jump to Tony Romo as well. So Tom Brady announces his retirement. I wanted to bounce this off you real quick. You probably saw this. Mike Francesa was on First Take with the Mad Dog, with Chris Russo. I didn't get to see the show, but I did see the highlights. And Stephen A. Smith, I mean, that's brilliant to bring them together like that. I hope they are on there more often. But I think that Mike Francesa said something extremely interesting to me. He said that Peyton Manning, in his opinion, was the best regular season quarterback ever. And then he said that he felt that Joe Montana was, I hope I'm getting it right. I think he said Joe Montana was kind of the best postseason quarterback of all time. But he said you put it all together, though, and you can't really question whether Tom Brady was the GOAT or not. Now I think what he based Montana on was Montana was 4-0 in Super Bowls. Brady was 7-3, right? Getting to 10 Super Bowls. It's just unfathomable to me that he led teams to Super Bowl 10 times in 24 years. And so do you agree with that assessment? I thought it was a pretty interesting take.
Um, I mean, yeah, I guess so. I don't know, because you still look at Tom Brady. I think he's a much better playoff quarterback than Joe Montana. Now, I didn't watch Joe Montana play, so I can't really say that for sure. But I mean, Tom Brady made 10 Super Bowls. I know he didn't win them all, but Joe Montana only went to four. Um, and also, like, I'm trying to find it here, but I can't seem to. I believe he's gone to 14 conference championship games, which like is ridiculous.
Unheard of.
Um,
Yeah.
and like, I mean, I guess I kind of see where that's coming from. And Brady is by far, obviously, like the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. Um, and you look at some of his regular seasons, like he didn't win as many MVPs as Peyton Manning. Definitely like the regular season, Peyton Manning definitely shined more. But also, you look at Tom Brady. Most of the time, he didn't have the type of weapons that Peyton Manning had.
Hmm.
I mean, he had Marvin Harrison for years.
Yeah.
He had also usually really like elite running back, running game type of
Edwin
thing.
James, Reggie Wayne.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like Tom Brady, the one year he had Randy Moss, like
Oh,
set the record for touchdowns and
yeah.
went 16-0 in the regular season.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard. I definitely see where that's coming from. And I think most people would say, yeah, they obviously like Tom Brady is like the greatest quarterback ever. Really, at this point, if you're arguing anybody else, then it's just out of bias. But I kind of do see the Peyton Manning was probably a better regular season quarterback. And Joe Montana kind of went to that next level in the playoffs. Um, but also like in Tom Brady's losses, like okay, so yeah, he lost the Giants twice. Thank you for the memories, Tom Brady. Um, but also his loss to the Eagles, he had over 500 yards in the Super Bowl and still lost. And
I
a lot of that was
uh,
like
yeah.
you talk to Patriot fans out there, they're gonna blame Bill Belichick for benching what's his face. Oh gosh, I'm losing it. Malcolm Butler. Because
Oh yeah,
apparently there was like that weird disagreement or something
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So I don't know.
yeah. You know, it's funny how you mentioned Malcolm Butler, and we're going to talk about Tony Romo in a second, but the I mean, the guy was obviously the hero the year before that, but Brady led that comeback against Atlanta, and well, a couple of years before that, right? Malcolm Butler was hero. He got the interception against Seattle, which was great. I mean, it's just so many great memories with Brady and performing in the Super Bowl, even from that first one with the Rams, and how he came back and they beat the Rams in on the last minute kick. I just I don't know, man. It's see, so Joe Montana is I want to take him real quick. I'm not minimizing the guy. He was unbelievable. But I almost like I'm not sure what the difference in him and Terry Bradshaw is, because Bradshaw also won 4 Super Bowls and didn't lose, in the Super Bowl. And so I'm not sure. Like I almost would put those two guys together because they're from the same era, and in my eyes, kind of equal if you're talking postseason. Because Bradshaw was just spectacular. Now maybe he doesn't get the credit because I don't know how many Hall of Famers now are from those Steeler teams, but almost every position had a Hall of Famer, right? So it was a great team effort. But Joe Montana also had the best wide receiver of all time in Jerry Rice, and
Yeah,
also had probably the second best wide receiver in that era, John Taylor, as well. And he had really good running backs as well with Roger Craig and a few others. So I don't want to minimize that, though. They're all great. It's hard to say anything against any of them. Peyton, I'll say real quick. So that is a good comparison because they played in the same era, right? And I think what Peyton did, although you could say the Broncos defense really won that Super Bowl, he did win another Super Bowl with another team, sort of like Brady did at the end of his career. And I just feel like this with Peyton. I think that them having, and this is all going to be familiar to you, I think that them having these spectacular regular season runs, where how many years did we think they were going to go undefeated? The Colts, they'd start off 12-0 or 13-1. And then what would happen? Either Tony Dungy or Jim Caldwell would sit down all their regulars for the last couple of games. Remember how Peyton didn't want to come out of that game against the Jets? And, he didn't even take his helmet off because he didn't want people to see his reaction. Um, I always thought that worked against the Colts, that they took their feet off of the accelerator there, the last game, and then they would always get a bye, and then they lost in the first round a couple of times, when they were, you know, 14-2 back then, right? It was 16 game season. I mean, I'm sure you look, they had a lot of 13-3 and 14-2 seasons in the midst of Peyton's era. And I think that hurt him. Whereas the Pats didn't always dominate during the regular season, except that, 16-0 season, but they played well enough to get in. But Belichick never would take Brady out. I mean, Brady played every second of every game, no matter if it was a blowout or not. And maybe that worked in his favor, but it's hard to compare someone who's went to 10 Super Bowls, won 7 of them. It's just hard for me, I can't put anybody else in that conversation.
yeah. Well, and like just to kind of put it in perspective too. So let's say let's say Patrick Mahomes wins next weekend and then wins the next two Super Bowls. That means he will have won three or won four in like 6, 7 years and been to like five in that same span. He will still be three Super Bowls away from tying Tom Brady. And I think something that sometimes gets overlooked, this guy was also the 199th pick in the draft. Like,
Amazing.
we're not talking about, like, because look, Patrick Mahomes was a high drafted quarterback. Peyton Manning was number one overall. Like, a lot of those guys are really high drafted, but Tom Brady wasn't. And I think it kind of shows the type of dedication he has. The guy is 45 years old and has spent more time in the NFL than he has not in the NFL in his lifetime.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane.
Yeah, it really is. It's hard to compare anybody to him. And 45, I mean, we just now kind of took that for granted the last few years. I remember several years ago, he said, I think I'm going to play till I'm 45, and people laughed. People were like, yeah, right. Only kickers play into their 40s. For a quarterback with that type of position, where you get hit, you have to run. It's just, it's amazing, amazing what he's done. And I think we'll be saying the same things years later with LeBron. I think those two, to compare them is going to be the right thing, because you don't see folks at 38 years old, hard to still play in the NBA, number one, but to play in the NBA and average 30 points a game like LeBron is doing is unbelievable. Same with Brady, man, to still get to the play. I know they were 8-9 this year, but to still get to the playoffs here at 45 years old, to still play every game at 45, it's amazing. It's hard to compare him to anyone.
Yeah, and he was 43, right, when he won his seventh Super Bowl. It wasn't like he won it like a whole bunch of years ago. It was 2 years ago.
And it was what he transformed that team into a winning, into a winning team. That, I mean, immediately when he walked in the door, that swagger just came with him, and they became a winning organization almost immediately. Not that Tampa wasn't a bad team at all, but I know it's been a while since they won that Super Bowl back in the early thousands, but it was, you just saw it. You just saw how he changed that team. It's amazing.
One more thing too.
Yeah.
Something that probably also kind of gets overlooked with him. I know I'm going to sound like a Patriots fan talking all this stuff, but whatever. He also has never been the highest paid quarterback,
What?
which to me is astonishing.
Now,
Like,
is that because he took pay cuts, or I mean, that's amazing.
yeah, because like he knows, like, in order to be like a winning ball player, you have to be able to pay your other guys. Because you look at a lot of the teams like that were really good. I think probably one of the bigger examples would be the Ravens back after they won in 2012. They were really good, and then they had to pay Joe Flacco, and they couldn't pay anybody else.
That was it.
But
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
every year, Tom Brady would always just take that pay cut. Even when he went to Tampa Bay, like, he was only making 25 million a year. Um, Aaron Rodgers is making double that, and look at what happened with him.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. He wanted to win. He wanted to win.
Yeah,
And when you look at those past teams, there's not a ton of offensive standouts that stayed for a long period of time. It was different guys that kept kind of coming in and out. You can make a case Gronkowski and Julian Edelman and a few others, but even I guarantee if you look, a couple of those guys weren't there for more than 3-4 years. Belichick
nah.
kind of just cycled guys in and out and got the most out of them. Amazing. And so now Brady is going to go into broadcasting. They haven't announced yet if he will be in the booth with Kevin Burkhardt. I imagine he will be. Burkhardt will be there. But will it be both Brady and Olsen in the booth next year, or just Burkhardt and Brady? And they haven't really announced that piece yet, but they're paying him a lot of money to be very, very good. They're looking to catch lightning in a bottle, sort of like CBS did with Tony Romo. We'll get to that in 1 second. Well, what are your thoughts on Brady transforming now into the broadcast booth?
Well, I think it'll be interesting. So, contract, 10 years, $375 million.
That's a lot of money.
Which, like I said, he made 25 million, I believe, with Tampa. He's like getting a pay raise by going to Fox, which is kind of crazy. Um, and I think like if he if he continues to have kind of that dedication like he did as a
Yeah.
quarterback,
Yes.
it can be very insightful. Because like Tony Romo at his peak, you can kind of see him doing the X's and O's as the game is going on. And like I remember like when he first came in, all like the Romoisms, like, oh, they're gonna do a pass this way based on how they're scheming stuff. Like I feel like Tom Brady can do that times 12 because Tom Brady's actually won a Super Bowl and Tony Romo hasn't. No offense to Tony Romo,
Yep.
but I think they feasibly could. I think it would be really, really challenging, especially for Greg Olson, if they were both in the booth, because I feel like it's just going to be like a night and day type thing. But I don't know. It could work.
Yeah, I would think that Greg Olson, God bless him, he talks a lot. Shout out to our brother Larry, right, who always says, "Let the game breathe."
Yeah.
Olson doesn't know about that. So I do think I don't think I have no idea what Brady's style is going to be, right, in the booth. Maybe it'll be sort of like predicting the plays like Tony Romo has done and does now. I just can't see both of them in there, and I'm not sure that's 100% fair to Olsen. But he said this past week he knew what he was getting into. When he got put him on the number 2 team. I mean, I think it's good enough, and I think him and Burkhardt will do a great job on the Super Bowl. But I think if you're paying him that much, you got to see what he's got, right? Yeah, throw him in there. And there's no way he's
Yeah.
just going to be able to just show up on Sundays and that's it. Fox is going to use him to do a lot of other stuff for that type of money. But his work ethic, his preparation, I agree with you. I think he'll do extremely well. Although, again, as a player, he never gave you much. His press conferences were never sort of like Derek Jeter. I know you were telling me
Yeah.
the thing about bringing Derek Jeter into the Yes booth and stuff like that. I'm like, but maybe he would be good because Jeff Van Gundy was the example I used on our chat this week. He was terrible with the press, and he's been the top announcer analyst for a long time with the NBA. So, maybe Jeter would be good. And I know Fox is banking on, I mean, literally banking on that Brady's going to be outstanding. We never watch a game because of the announcer, though. It's which makes it odd that you would pay that much money. I never say, "Oh, Joe Buck and Troy Aikman are doing the game. I gotta watch it." The fact that they can enhance it is a good thing, though. All right, so let's talk. We've mentioned Tony Romo a couple of times. What the heck's going on? I don't get it. Is he still? Let me ask you this: do you still feel the same way about him that you did 5 years ago?
I feel like he's gotten like slightly stale. Like I know there's been a lot of people that have been annoyed by like how he calls games. I think part of that is the because like let's be honest, it's CBS. They always like him and Jim Nantz always have like the big 425 games. And what is that game usually? The Chiefs and somebody. So I feel like somebody like I think people are starting to get a little sick of the way he analyzes Patrick Mahomes because also Mahomes is like one of the best like I would probably say the best quarterback right now. Um but like I think maybe that's where part of that comes from. But I think he is still a really good analyst. I think he really knows football really well. And I think he knows enough about like defensive schemes to kind of figure out, okay, this is what they should have done. This is what they're going to do. I think he's still very good. Um, like I don't know, who would you say would be your favorite broadcasting team right now? Because I think it would probably be them by default.
Yeah.
Like you said, like I'm not really running to a program based on whose program. I sound like I'm 80. I'm not running to a game based on like who's calling it.
Right. Right. But if it's a big game on CBS, it's going to be Nance and Romo, like you said. Romo I still like. I see he's probably still my favorite. Someone asked me this someone asked me this a few weeks ago, and I think I said Romo. I do think Chris Collinsworth is very, very good. I think he's dead on the way he can pick things apart. And he's also got that unique gravelly voice of his that I kind of like. Troy Aikman and Joe Buck are still, I think, very good. They had some good moments, I thought, this year, particularly when I heard them with the whole Damar Hamlin thing and the way they handled it. I thought was, the fact that they were a veteran broadcasting team. I think they handled it extremely well. And we just talked about Burkhardt and Olsen. So I I don't know why we like people tend to drop out of favor with. I'm just going to talk in society in general for a second because there's no way that Tony Romo all of a sudden goes from being like the golden boy and this great, announcer comparing him to John Madden, and then all of a sudden he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Now, can that happen? Yeah, right. Can people stop working hard? Because he also got paid a lot of money to do what he does. And, there's some things that maybe him and Jim Nance aren't clicking. So that can happen. But I would think that chemistry would get better after 6 years or so, right? He started in 2017. Um, 6 seasons now in the booth together. I would think chemistry would get better. It's rare that it gets worse, right? So
Yeah.
I search myself a little bit and I'm like, I still enjoy him. I'm not catching where the drop off has been. But the article I sent you, even the CBS executives felt like there was some sort of drop off because they had this whole thing with him before the season started. Um, but I just think that we're quick to just tear someone down that is kind of at the pinnacle. And it's almost like maybe because he was a cowboy, I don't know. And there's a lot of, many people that love the Cowboys, there's many people that hate the Cowboys. And maybe there's some of that. They're looking at him and saying, yeah, see, told you so. He ain't that good. Um, but I can't put my finger on what it is. I don't know. Does he predict the plays as well as he did at first? Well, no one was going to be on the roll like he was, man. He was like saying, "Okay, it's going to be a running play to the left here, right?" And he would know that right away. I don't hear him doing that much anymore. Or when he did, I know on Sunday, and we'll get to the championship games in a second, but I know when he did that at times on Sunday, there were a couple of times where he was wrong. Um, and so but that doesn't bother me so much. He still has that enthusiasm to me. He still says, "Here we go. This is a big moment here in the game." I kind of like that. It's almost like what appealed to us at the beginning, right? Not just me and you, but I think everybody was that Tony Romo sounded like a guy that'd be sitting in our living room watching a game with us. Yes.
Yeah. And I wonder if part of it too is I mean, I just saw what is the number. He's making 180 million over the next 10 years too. So it might be that like the expectation is so high for him.
Yeah.
Because yeah, like I think he was able to predict a lot more plays back then because he's a lot more familiar. Like
Yeah.
if you're a couple years removed, a lot of the defensive stars, you already know their tendencies anyway. But like when was the last time Tony Romo played? 2015, 2016?
Yeah.
So like a lot of the stars back then are old or retired. Like JJ Watt is probably a good example of one. JJ Watt is retired. He hasn't been like a pinnacle defensive star in years.
Yeah.
So like that could also be part of it too. It's just he's that far removed. But then like kind of like a pitcher that is like a fireball pitcher throwing 99, but then loses velocity and you have to kind of relearn how to pitch and to actually like pitch with finesse. Like maybe that also just hasn't happened for him where he hasn't like relearned how to analyze.
Yeah.
Where you have to actually like you can't just rely on like your general knowledge, you have to actually do some studying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you nailed it. And maybe he does need to go back to the drawing board a little bit more, um, because maybe just surviving on his personality, which is a big personality, right? Just alone is not gonna continue to cut it. I think that's a great point. Last quick point. We're in agreement on this, right? There's no way on earth, and I'm not sure why some people would assume that that's what he was going to say, because that's been flying around on the internet that he was about to call three of the 49ers, the not the 49ers, three of the Chiefs, right? Was it a pass that was caught by a Bengal? Yes. Um,
Yeah.
the N word. There's no, I mean, I'm not sure why that got into people's head that he was getting ready to say that. Um, Nickelback is a very common term that he uses a lot. I don't think that safeties and defensive backs are called that as much anymore. That used to be the nickelback was usually the fifth, right? There were typically two defensive backs and two safeties, right? And then when you put in a fifth, that'd be called the nickel back. Um,
Yeah.
but teams now, there's rarely any teams that have four down linemen, three linebackers, and four, two safeties and two defensive backs. They typically shift that up a lot, just depending on the play, and and so there could have been three nickel backs in at that time. In fact, there were. Um, but why would that start to like circulate? Why would people think all of a sudden that? And he's a Hispanic American, by the way, that all of a sudden people would think that he would use that type of word. That just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's part of the hating on him a little bit,
Yeah.
which like we've kind of just talked about. I think a lot of that is kind of weird and unwarranted. But also, I mean, I'm a little off topic, but like a lot of people still like you mentioned you like Chris Collinsworth. I know a lot of people that don't like him.
Yeah.
Same with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. Like for me, when I hear those guys, I know it's a big game. Chris Collinsworth, it's Sunday Night Football. Like that's my frame of reference. Um, so I wonder if that's where part of it's coming from. I don't know why people didn't just realize that that's probably what he was saying, or maybe he thought that there were nickelbacks out there and then was like, "Oh, never mind."
Yeah.
But like he, if he actually said that on live TV, he'd be gone anyway.
Oh yeah.
And
He wouldn't have finished the
and
game.
it doesn't seem
Yeah.
like there was yeah, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of reprimand from it because like let's be honest, probably on the next commercial break, the producer like I don't know. To me, it's kind of a non-story, but it's like one of those things where it's like people are trying to make it a bigger thing than it is.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right. Well, this is going to be an interesting offseason for sure because there'll be some quarterbacks moving, Aaron Rodgers maybe, and stuff like that. Um, so let's talk about Championship Sunday. I know it's several days later, but we've got our matchup, Chiefs Eagles. I believe you were right for both teams. Yes.
I said Chiefs Niners, I think.
Oh, you said Chiefs Niners because I picked the Niners too.
Yeah.
I was wrong for both. I said Niners Bengals for a third time in the Super Bowl. Um, so, what were your overall thoughts? I don't know that there's much to talk about in the first game with Eagles Niners. Are you surprised that though the Eagles looked this good, putting aside that the Niners just couldn't do anything offensively because they didn't have a quarterback? Um, are you surprised the Eagles look this good?
Yes and no. I think first of all, when you look at the totality of the season, the Eagles definitely had the best season of any NFC team from start to finish. Something I actually heard this morning, which is kind of interesting. You talked about Aaron Rodgers possibly leaving. Let's say he goes to Vegas. First of all, the Packers have said if they're trading him, he's going to an AFC team. Who's left in the NFC? Jalen Hurts? Who's number two? Dak Prescott? Like, there really isn't anybody left, especially now that Tom Brady's gone.
Yeah.
Um, but like, you look at the Eagles from start to finish. I mean, what were they? 13-4. They have the best season of any NFC team. Um, I'm a little surprised because I was very concerned about Jalen Hurts. I mean, he missed the last few weeks of the season, but also picked right up where he left off against the Giants. And then, like, the offense was really sharp. And you look at like their team in general. Remember a few years ago, there was a big controversy as to whether or not they should have Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts. Look at where the two quarterbacks are right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Carson Wentz maybe is going to have a starting job next year.
Yeah.
But then Jalen Hurts is here in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's just crazy how um, if you get the quarterback right, your team's in great shape.
Yeah.
And like you, when you don't have the quarterback right, you have to move off of them. And I think the Eagles is a good example of that. Um, but like the 49ers, if they had a quarterback that wasn't hurt, they probably would have been the best team in the NFC. Brock Purdy was looking great.
Hmm.
Brock Purdy still hasn't like lost a game where he played the whole game,
Yeah.
which is incredible
So many
as a guy
weapons
that
they have.
was taking the draft. Yeah.
Yeah.
So word, I think you look at okay, so Trey Lance is probably going to be the guy. Um, Kyle Shanahan has basically said Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be there next year.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought maybe Tom Brady might want to slip in there, but obviously that's not happening unless he pulls a Brett Favre and decides to unretire again. Um,
Crazy.
so like, yeah, I don't know. The Eagles are set up for good success. I look at the AFC though. First of all, don't trash talk the Chiefs. The Bengals did a lot of talking.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I don't think they were really that motivated by it. I was listening to an interview from Patrick Mahomes, and he said what motivated him was when they beat them in the regular season, and they said they have to now beat us. He said that was motivation that he wanted to play them again. Um, Patrick Mahomes on one foot
Yeah.
was able to completely dominate. Um, he had a high ankle sprain 8 days ago, and still was able to pull off the victory. I know there was a like that penalty at the end. Anyone that says that that was a bad call just didn't see it. It was the right call. I
Yeah.
think that that guy's like he was literally crying on the sidelines. He knew he made a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Joseph Asai, I believe his name is.
Yeah.
Um, but like I don't know, maybe the Mahomes Burrow matchup is starting to look more like the Manning Brady matchup of now.
Yeah.
It might be early to say that because also like it's really hard to make the conference championship, especially looking out in the AFC where you got Justin Herbert, who will have a new offensive coordinator. I don't know. I'll throw Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. That could be an interesting storyline to look at if that actually happens.
Hmm. Yes.
Trevor Lawrence is going to be better again
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson has a new head coach in Sean Payton.
Yeah. Lamar
Like
Jackson. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson will have a full
Yeah.
offseason,
Yeah.
and they still have a really good roster. So like to automatically assume it'll be Burrow and Mahomes again is a little presumptuous. Josh Allen, we didn't even talk about him there.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's fully there, but definitely like especially with the way that they've matched up the last couple of years, it'll be very interesting.
Yeah. It really will. So in the Chiefs Bengals game, you mentioned this earlier. The officiating was off. It was hard for me to believe that mistake where the clock did. Now that wasn't their fault. Whoever is running the clock, right, where the clock didn't stop, and then a whole nother play is run and whistled off, and it would have been fourth down. The Chiefs would have punted. Instead, they get the second opportunity. Mahomes makes the most of it. But there were a couple of other sketchy calls and a couple of non-calls in there also on that big punt return at the end. There was a block in the back that they missed. It was so blatant. Um, that they missed. But I just think that those teams are so evenly matched, but the Chiefs just have that championship pedigree. And I think that Mahomes is just there's something else about him that is just spectacular, how he just willed his team to win. I mean, that last play, I mean, he got the first down, and then obviously I'm not laughing at it, but the 15 yards, I mean, yeah, you were like at least 5 yards out of bounds and where he hit him. And like you said, I felt so bad for Asai because he definitely knew he made a mistake right away. And the Bengals didn't argue that. Yeah, you could tell they were like on the sideline looking. They were like they couldn't believe that he hit him that far out of bounds. And um, but the Chiefs just had it was almost like they were willed to win, sort of like the Bengals did last year in the last year's championship game. But this year was different because you're watching Mahomes just limp around. Yet when he had to get out of the pocket, he still got out of the pocket. He still made these unbelievable throws that only he can make. And they're just a championship type team. And um, it's we could break down all the X's and O's that we want. It just to me it came down to the Chiefs just led by Mahomes, who's their clear leader, and so's Burrow on the Bengals. But Mahomes is a different type of leader, than Burrow. Burrow's a little bit more quiet, a little bit more laid back, just gets the job done out there, fearless. Mahomes is very chirpy, out there talking to the team. And they had to see this guy's hurt. And what was it, 18 degrees there as well? So it's freezing cold, which any of us who've ever had like a hurt arm or a hurt ankle or something like that, the cold weather just kills it, you know.
Yeah.
Yet he's out there just doing it. It was a wonderful, wonderful game, and a wonderful display, I think, by the Chiefs. So early part of this matchup now, because we'll be on. We have at least one more show before Super Bowl 57, right? Can't believe it's 57. Who do you like right away?
I don't know. For me, it's starting to look like, how you never vote against Brady. I don't think I'm going to vote against Mahomes. I'm going with the Chiefs.
Okay.
Honestly, like I could see this going either way. I think the Eagles have an excellent defense. And the last time Mahomes faced off against an excellent defense, he was running around like crazy, even like throwing the ball with his back right about to hit the turf, nailing the guys right in the hands, and he couldn't make it happen. So I think it's not going to be easy. I think it is going to be a very like hard fought game. A lot of times Super Bowls have been kind of like last few Super Bowls are kind of but I feel like this one might be a little bit more exciting.
Yeah.
But I'll go with the Chiefs.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't. I'm going to talk about Jalen Hurts in a second. We'll get to inspiration, but I think there's something special about him as well. But Mahomes is quickly becoming, the best player in the NFL, not just the best quarterback. He does so much, and it's hard to bet against him. When they lost to the Rams in the Super Bowl, I was like, Mahomes just didn't look himself, right? And maybe it was the Rams defense, the different schemes and everything like that. But I don't know that the Eagles will disrupt him, that much. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
And so um let's get to some inspiration. Did the Chiefs, I don't know, why am I doubting myself? Did the Chiefs lose to the Rams in the Super Bowl?
No, the Bucks.
The Bucks. That's right. I was going to say, wait a second. The Rams ain't won 2 Super Bowls these last couple of years. Yes, it was to the Bucks. That's right. And their defense definitely, Bruce Arians definitely confused them. Anyway, we'll talk more. I know what I wanted to say. The whole Andy Reid now possibly beating the Eagles, his old team in the Super Bowl, is quite a that's going to be quite an element as they talk all the talk shows next week. That'll be quite the element.
That'll be a fun story.
A fun story. All right, inspiration. I'll go first, and I know you've got some. So we'll talk about the two quarterbacks. I'm just going to read an article I found about Jalen Hurts earlier this year. As I told you the last few weeks, I felt like there's a special story with him going back from college. He's been the underdog, and there's this video out on YouTube where it's filled with dozens of clips of people earlier in the year and people last year saying how the Eagles will take that next step with Jalen Hurts as quarterback. Yeah, and he has proved all of them wrong. and he just quoted a scripture, right? John 6:17, and he just said, "Go look it up." When people ask him, "Oh, what does that mean?" Right? He said, "Go look it up." But I'm just going to read this article real quick because I think this sums up. This really sums up Jalen Hurts. So this is earlier in the year, and he became a full-time starter last year, leading the Eagles into the playoffs. This is after they started off 2-0. Now it says Hurts, a dual threat quarterback who played college football at Alabama, then Oklahoma, says his Christian faith drives everything he does. That's something that I've just matured in and realized that God is everything and he's worthy of praise, Hurts told CBS Sports. You have to put him in the center of everything that you do. And that's what I believe. I've been blessed to grow, learn things, and just mature. And I know God has been there the whole entire way. Hurts's role as an NFL starting quarterback in a sports crazed city like Philadelphia gives him a platform few others have had. Hurts says he wants to use it for good. This summer, his former high school associate principal, Alan Smith, phoned Hurts and asked if he could help purchase 3 or 4 uniforms for a local AAU basketball program in Houston that was running short on funds. Smith told CBS Sports that Hurts did that and more. Soon, the AAU program had an estimated $15,000 in new equipment, from jerseys to shoes to jogging shorts to athletic bags, CBS Sports said. Hurts visited his hometown 3 times during the offseason. I just want to set the right example for the kid that does look up to me, the kid that does want to be something great and do something special with themselves, Hurts told CBS Sports. It may not even be the kid that looks up to me. They may look up to somebody else. But when they see the name Jalen Hurts, I want them to be able to say that that's an example of how I can do it. I keep God in the center of everything. I give him all the praise. I lean on him all the time. And I know that everything unfolds the way it's supposed to. I just want to set the right example, and I want to be remembered as someone who made a difference. That's an everyday thing. It's something that I think about every day. Kenny, I've been telling our congregation that revival is happening right in front of us. And between Jalen Hurts, and you'll get to Patrick Mahomes here in a second, and other players, and the whole Max Lucado He Gets Us campaign that we'll see in the Super Bowl, there's going to be a lot of God talk. And that can't be a bad thing. And for our nation to see that, well over 100 million people always watch the Super Bowl. It's probably going to be higher this year because of these 2 teams that are in it. But I'm sure Jalen Hurts, probably in the first press conference, will be talking about and praising God right away. Anyway, that's my inspiration.
And I'm going to point this out with 2 quick things with Jalen Hurts. 2022 salary was $1.082 million. It's not like he's not making the bank yet.
Nope.
Also, I had stumbled upon this. I had sent it to you yesterday. It's a quote from him. I went through a lot of stuff in college, and it kind of stuck with me. John 13:7. You may not know now, but later you'll understand. I'm sure he understands
John
now.
13:7. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one. I said 6-7. Yeah. John 13:7. Absolutely.
Also, so Patrick Mahomes. Like you said, I think there's a lot of God talk. And I feel like, yes, God doesn't have favorites except for the Yankees. But we but I think God does use a lot of times sports as a way to have his name glorified. And I look at these 2 quarterbacks, and I think that that's a perfect example. So Patrick Mahomes, obviously, high ankle sprain, divisional round against Jacksonville. 8 days later, he's out there, over 300 yards, willing his team to the Super Bowl. Right after the game, he's in an interview, and the first thing he says is, I want to thank God, man. He healed my body this week. To battle through that, he gave me the strength to be out there. And you can kind of just see the humility in that, and the centeredness on this is what God is doing. This is not what Patrick Mahomes is doing. Because most people would be like, oh yeah, I toughed it out. I'm I'm this really hard-nosed player. I can do
Yeah.
anything. But he said, no, like God healed my body. And because of that, like I was able to make it to the Super Bowl. So I just really love like even just that small snapshot.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I hope that. Oh, and here's another quote here. I did have something else. Before every game, I walk to the field, I do a prayer at the goalpost. I just thank God for those opportunities. And I thank God for letting me be on a stage where I can glorify Him. The biggest thing I pray for is whatever happens, win, lose, success, or failure, that I'm glorifying Him.
Hmm.
So, so
Yeah.
here we go. It's gonna be
Yeah.
a fun Super Bowl.
It will be. It will be. His commercials are really funny, like the one with the bath bomb, and he's tossing all of the in there. The guy comes and says it's time for your jazz bath. I mean, he's got just a natural way in front of the camera. That's really
Yeah,
yeah. Listen, let's go. I think revival is happening in front of us, and I love what you said that God uses sports sometimes to build His platform. All right, there, Kenny. Take us home.
alrighty. This is Kenny Squared N
Kenny.
with sports on the positive tip. We will see you guys soon.
Yeah. And so the music that you're probably hearing right now, we got to give a shout out. That is for a Virus, a group called Virus, who happens to be our son, my son, your brother, this terrific intro and outro music that we have. And so check him out on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you get music. He's on all of them. Amazon, everyone. Virus. Check,
SoundCloud.
check him out. Absolutely. All right. Talk to you later.